Ladies and gentlemen, his name is Adrian Bartos. And I didn't know that. No, I did.
I should have known.
Also known as Stretch Armstrong. And you're looking at us like, look, it's Ebro in the morning with the beautiful Laura Stiles. And who's this older white guy who's way older than Rosenberg? Rosenberg grew hair and let it go gray. Wait, but Stretch, you went gray early, though, in your life,
I started
right?
getting gray hairs in my, like when I was 21.
Yeah.
I got glasses and gray hair the same year. And I was sweating for like a few weeks. Like, this is really not
But
good.
I think it worked for you overall. Like
I've
since
been-
your 20s, having glasses and like some sandy, salty hair.
Salt and pepper. I like that.
It's
A lot of
probably
girls like
done
that.
more good for me than bad.
Girls
So
love it, right?
I've been told that,
Yeah.
that I've had fingers caressed through my hair by strangers. So we hear a lot about that, like over this year, particularly, like, you know, people
Don't touch
women
my hair
saying,
with
"Don't touch my hair."
Solange. Solange's record.
I get that. So I'm feeling Solange on that one.
Well, when I had hair, women touched my hair too all the time. I had dreadlocks forever, all through the 90s, and it was a constant petting zoo. I would be like, all right, chill. I don't know where your hair's going.
Did you go bald after you cut your dreads off?
Not for a while.
Okay.
I didn't shave my head bald until I cut my hair in 2000. I didn't shave my head bald probably until 2006 or 7 probably. And then it was like, all right, it was running from me here, and there was a little lightning here. I was like, let me get out of here before I'm holding on too long.
Own it. Yeah.
Let me just go.
Let me get out of here.
I never went bald, but I once had a really, really, really super low Caesar, and it was
Didn't work.
horrible.
Didn't work.
You see, when before I met Bobito, I was rocking kind of, you know, typical white boy haircuts, kind of mid-length, kind of messy, whatever. And then Bob was like, nah, I'm the Egypt king. Bobito the barber.
That's right.
I gotta hook
get
you up.
right.
So he edged me up, and you know, within 45 minutes, I looked Puerto Rican. and he tried to get me to rock like sneakers with a matching sweatshirt and a baseball cap to match, and I felt like a little kid.
Straight Bobito makeover.
I had to just did that really, really quickly.
We didn't know this whole time that the Stretch and Bobito relationship was really that Bobito was a stylist for Stretch Armstrong. We had no idea.
That wasn't the impetus of our friendship. It was music, and then I said, let me get this guy, you know. Let me let him do his thing on me, and it was a disaster.
Well,
and you see in the film, in the Stretch and Bobito movie,
Yes.
like the styles I was rocking back then.
It was bad.
The thing is, right?
It was
See,
bad.
unlike now, when everything you do right now is going to be seen by the public because everyone has a cell phone. Back then, it wasn't like that. If someone brought a video camera to the radio station, it was kind of a big deal. So, you know, you would dress for radio.
Right.
No one's going to see you. You look horrible.
Yeah.
You got pimples. You're wearing dirty clothes. You're wearing promo gear that you would never be seen in public.
Free T-shirts from rappers.
And somehow, on the nights when I looked the most foolish, there was a camera, and now it's immortalized in our film. I'm looking nuts, and I don't, and you know, I'm wondering like, how did I ever like even get girls back in the day the way I was looking?
Yeah, you was on that microphone. You was on that box. You was rocking these parties. You could just be a scumbag and
looked
just
horrible.
get out a dirtbag, just running around getting it. But the film that you speak of, the documentary, the Stretch and Bobito documentary, is available on Netflix as of a couple days ago.
That's right. We just splashed Netflix in 190 plus countries as of, I guess, 3 days ago. So that's
tight.
incredibly exciting. Stretch and Bobito, Radio That Changed Lives is the name of the film.
I got to see it when you guys had a screening in Central Park. And it was I just can't believe how much footage you guys have. Like, because if you think about it, at that time, like you said, it was a special time when people just brought up, but I just don't remember people like walking around with like humongous video cameras. You guys have a lot of footage.
Yeah, well, we always had one or two friends that were like really into film and videography, and but you know, I think as a testament to the way the film was edited and put together, if you really look at the film and break it down, some of the most iconic moments that we highlight in the film were not captured on video. And we had these blank spaces of you know, with no imagery, just audio, and we filled them in by you know, having some really like legendary visual artists filling those blanks.
Right.
We had
Yeah.
Jose Parla, Lee Quinones, Eric Hayes, Stash. But we did
Parla.
have some ill footage as well, and some crazy photographs too. I mean, like you see the photograph of Mobb Deep when they were Poetical Prophets. They're we throw the word kids around, but like they literally were kids.
They were 18, 17.
They were younger. They were 16.
16, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Biggie was 18 or 19. I think in the film, 50 Grand's, his DJ says he was 16, but he was actually 19. But that's still dumb young.
Yeah, and relative. I mean, and it's awesome too because and I want to get into this a little bit today because you obviously, being somebody that paved the way for a lot of artists through music, and that's what the documentary is about. Not only what you guys were doing as far as radio here at Hot 97, but why you were doing it here in New York City, and giving a platform to voices from the local neighborhoods here in New York City. Now hip hop is much more global. You yourself have become global in DJing, and you travel to a lot of countries. But hip hop is still a young man's, young woman's, young man's art form. Still a young woman, young man's game. How do you feel about where hip hop is at today? Because you, unlike Bobbito, actually spend a little bit of time paying attention to what's happening right now. Bobbito is like, I'm not.
Well, it's the irony of that is never lost on me because I don't know if you know, but when I stopped doing Hot 97 and when I was the last, I think 2 or 3 years I was on Hot.
And what years were
I wasn't even doing WKCR.
Really?
Because it was just too difficult to do an all-night show for no money all the way uptown. I was like, I can't do that anymore. And the music wasn't speaking to me, so I wasn't going up with that.
What years?
I stopped doing WKCR in '98, and I stopped doing Hot in 2001.
So you stayed with Hot because you felt like the music was still there, but when it came to...
No, I stayed with Hot because the platform was so big.
Got it.
And it's just like, I remember having a conversation with Paul Rosenberg. I was like, yo, Paul, I'm really not...
Not Peter. This is Eminem's manager,
Right.
Paul, not Rosenberg.
I was like, yo, I'm just not into this anymore. Like, I'm not into being on the radio. I'm not into... Actually, no, I liked talking on the radio, but filling 2 hours of, with music that I loved was impossible. And I just was like, I'm spending like half an hour before my show on Sunday, like going through records, seeing what's there, like just sort of superficially needle dropping, like, okay, that's okay. And just kind of regurgitating the same artists, and it just wasn't satisfying.
And what do you think that was because of, looking back?
I think hip hop in 2001 was really in a serious lull. This is before Kanye came out and before a lot of new blood came in. It was like living off the vapors of the 90s.
And then Kanye came and 50 Cent came and...
Well, 50 was already popping.
On the mixtapes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, one of my last shows was 50 and Nas. And that was a funny...
And that was his Sony deal, right? That was when he was on
exactly.
Sony,
And that was a funny show because I remember really well, Nas was wearing a trench coat made out of Louis Vuitton fabric.
Oh my God.
So he had a Louis Vuitton trench, like Dapper Dan style. And before he left, he came into the booth and he, under his breath, he was like, yo, Stretch, you got the only show on Hot 97. And then when I stopped doing Hot, and full disclosure, I did not quit Hot, even though that was...
They got rid of you.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not feeling this. And then it worked out.
Tracy came to you, Tracy Clardy was like, all right, time's up, guys.
It wasn't Tracy, it was Tracy's boss.
Steve?
No,
Judy?
Judy, yeah.
Judy Ellis.
Judy calls me, I'm like, what's Judy? Judy's only calling me because it's over. So I take the call. She says, Stretch, are you free this afternoon? Can you come in for a meeting? I was like, Judy, I don't need to come in. Like, it's all good. Like, I have really mixed feelings about being on Hot, and if you'd like to let me go, I'm totally fine with that. And that was that. But they wouldn't give me a final show because I think when Evil D had his last show,
he bugged out.
But that's what usually happens when you quit on radio, right? They don't let, as soon as you say you put in your...
I let people have their last show because my relationship generally, I've let them know along the way that this thing isn't working out. So when we walk up to that point where it's like, all right, it's time to wrap this up.
Right.
Like, let's wrap this up and figure out a way to transition this in a nice way where it doesn't have to be the end of the world.
I understood that she had, the corporate stance and policy, but for me, it was bitter because at that time, Hot 97 was championing all the artists that basically came through our doors on signs. So I was like, it's kind of
feels weird.
Like
funny.
It's
we brought him to this point, and then now we got to be out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, Rosenberg feels like that too. I mean, Rosenberg is on in the same slot with his Real Late show that you guys had your Stretch and Bobbito show.
Right.
Of which Rosenberg has gotten flack for not having, from the blogosphere. How would I describe the people on the internet world of not having impact?
Yeah.
But Rosenberg broke Frank Ocean. Rosenberg broke
Action Bronson,
A$AP
Kendrick
Lamar,
Rocky.
A$AP Rocky, like
it's a good list.
Yeah, that came through his show. Childish Gambino,
Yo, his
Chance
new
the
album?
Rapper.
What's up with that?
I'm trying to think of some other artists that Rosenberg got as far as radio's concerned,
Sure.
right? I mean, obviously, and you can speak to this. Being on Hot 97, I'm sure college radio got to things before Hot 97, but Hot 97 was that kind of moment that things crack into the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, people be like, "Yo, you broke Eminem, you broke Nah." I'm like, well,
for the mainstream,
we're a piece of the overall puzzle. We got him to a place where Hot 97 would check for him,
right?
But Eminem was going to happen with or without me,
right?
Right.
And I mean, I'm sure Rosenberg feels the same way. But it's interesting to watch people give the DJ that only has the one show a week that's breaking artists a hard time for trying to break artists.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's always an interesting concept to me. Like it's no one's ever happy. Was that your experience being in that position?
No, not at all.
No.
No. I think when I was on Hot, that was when hip hop was really going through like rapid transformation and just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think people just looked at what I was doing at Hot and what me and Bob were doing at Hot earlier when we were doing it together, and what we're doing at KCR as this like oasis where you could just go there and know like, okay, I could just tune the whole world out and be happy with this. But I was making a point earlier and we got sidetracked. The funny thing is, after I stopped doing Hot, I was so disgusted with a lot of the people that I had to deal with in the industry, both trying to do my own production company label, a lot of the music that was being put out, and just the general atmosphere within the industry. I mean, as soon as hip hop became big business, like every drug dealer became a manager,
right?
And like, so you got to deal with these people who
don't know the music. They just
don't
have
know
some
the
money
music,
in their pocket.
don't know
or the business
know,
really.
Can't take no for an answer. Are very quick to feel disrespected when you're just being honest.
Right.
And I just wasn't. I was like, this is not the world that I want to be in. So I made a very public exit from hip hop. I remember I was on MySpace being like, don't send me your demo, don't send me your records. And friends of mine were like, yo, you're bugging me. Like you might
you're
feel
losing
like this, but like tone it down a bit. And I just had to air it out. And it took years for me to sort of come back into the hip hop fold. And now I'm looked at as kind of like an elder statesman in a way, and I'm enjoying it. And I like playing hip hop, the hip hop that I like, whether it's new or old. Because that the crowd that knows me, they've gotten older as well.
And you guys who's it? You, Clark Kent,
Tony Touch,
D-Nice.
and D-Nice,
and Rich Medina.
Yeah. Some of the best curators. I'm not even gonna say DJs, curators of classic and modern music all together do a party at Cielo right over here in the Meatpacking, which is one of the best sound systems left in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going very well for you guys.
Yeah,
it's every month, right?
We're called The Originals. I don't know if that name is actually original.
It's not.
In fact, I'll say that it's not.
That's fine.
You ever
It's
heard,
in context.
You ever heard of Adidas?
Yeah.
But the spirit of the name works. And yeah, it's funny because I assembled all of us together after Sandy for a benefit to raise money for a company that.
And that had to be 2012.
Not a company, but an organization that's involved in water and I can't
helping
remember exactly
families
what they
recover. Let's say that.
Absolutely, yeah. So we put that together and had an incredible party, and then we just said, wow, that was phenomenal. Let's do this regularly, and we've been doing it for 4 years. Our fourth anniversary is December 22nd at Cielo, and we just did Cielo a week ago, and
I was there.
It was crazy.
It was crazy.
Good time.
It was crazy.
Ebro, everybody was dancing. No
that's what
standing
happens
around.
when you have a great DJ.
Everybody was
There's
dancing.
a lot of joy.
Oh wait,
in
no,
that
there was
room.
no snapping and IG.
A little bit,
But
you know,
It
still.
was a very joy-filled party. A lot of fun. Legit. It's a party.
Now, every time do you guys do it, is it always does it always benefit a charity? Because I know the last one that you did was for it benefits Standing Rock.
Right. We've never done a charity, but I was like, yo, we can't take people's money like this without doing something. And I think next one we're gonna do that as well, because that there's been a ruling, right, or the Army Corps of Engineers have decided not to go under the river, but this is going to be appealed. It's not over at all.
Well, with Donald Trump as president, he's an investor in the Dakota Access Pipeline Company.
He's not going to go
dig
under the river. He's going to go. He's just going to go. Let's just go through the river, and just.
It's not going to be quite that easy. I don't care if you're the president or not, but they had proposed. If those of you following the Dakota Access Pipeline, they had proposed a route around the river that was a longer route, and it was denied. They didn't want to go that route. They wanted to go under the river, right? They also, if you've been paying attention, had originally proposed for the pipeline to go closer and around the river, away from the Indian reservation and this sacred land and this Sioux land, the Standing Rock land, closer to the city of Bismarck, which they didn't want to do because they were concerned that there might be some contamination.
Oh, really?
So wait a minute, you don't want to go over there because it might, but you want. All right, so.
But what's crazy about that, if you look at the map, on the original route where it was near Bismarck, it was not really touching that much water. I mean, here it's going to hit water
either way,
because
there's water that goes all the way around.
In the new route, which just got temporarily rejected, it goes through the river twice. It goes under a lake. I mean, it's like touching water or near water in many different places. And sure, that would affect the immediate surrounding area, but what about the 17 million people that water supplies? What
down? You mean down the river, farther down?
Why aren't they've got a lot of skin in this game? Where are they?
Right, and they may not realize.
Yeah,
they may
not
be aware.
But they probably don't even.
There's a lot of people
together.
who aren't paying attention, and that's an issue even when we get to start talking more about hip hop and we start talking about your book, No Sleep, that's available. The amount of people who just go about their daily lives not paying attention to what's happening to them, that they have information, it's there, but unfortunately, so many of us are so busy working and take care of our families, working 2 jobs just to stay afloat, that you don't even have the time in a day to mentally digest and follow all of the bullshit that's happening to you, from the food you eat to the air you breathe to everything that's happening to your school, your kids' schools, to what's happening on your block. Yeah. So that's a whole other conversation.
But I gotta say, I have at least 4 friends that have been out at Standing Rock, volunteering, helping, bringing supplies, and so I think I think that just the natural balance of the way things are, the worst stuff that gets thrown at us, the more inspired and called to action. Maybe not everyone gets, but
I think more. We had that conversation this morning. Are you feeling? We asked the audience to call in with the Walter Scott verdict or lack of any verdict, which is a mistrial. What happened to Joe McKnight in New Orleans when the shooting in traffic, when the guy got out of his car, a white dude jumped out, shot a black man who was a football player in traffic, and now they've arrested that guy on manslaughter, but originally they had let him walk out with because of the laws down there.
And even the spike in hate crimes, it's gone up 115%.
So we asked people, do you feel more resilient than ever because you're being inundated with this information, or do you feel defeated? Because you can start to feel like, what am I doing out here? Because every day it's something else.
And what's the pulse that you've been getting?
And it felt like it was a mix.
Yeah,
it was a mix. There are people who felt resilient, but they could see their friends are starting to wear on them. And then you had people who, are feeling like, what's the point? Like, why do I even participate? And, somebody like me, I always feel when things get, the tone is where it is today, I feel like it's right on the precipice of something amazing and positive happening, right? The closer you get to feeling like you're at the bottom.
I feel that. I feel that too, really. And I certainly hope that that's the case.
So you, Stretch Armstrong, have a book. It's called No Sleep, speaking of something amazing happening, where you've basically cataloged, or I'm sure there's a better word I could use, but put together a
compiled.
nice, compiled all of the amazing flyers, or
This
as many
is
as
so
you can
dope.
find, of New York City flyers from 1988 to 1999. It's called No Sleep. Is this available right now?
It drops today.
Today, this
Yes.
is out. And you can get this online, I'm sure.
Yep. It's on Amazon, and it's at participating bookstores.
It's a great gift for the holidays.
Oh my God, are you crazy?
I open it up, I see Kenny Sharf, and then I see the first one. Hold on, when I saw Keith Haring flyer. So are these flyers that you had personally? That were you always collecting them, or?
Well, let me just say, one, I did the book
so dope.
with my man Evan from Up North Trips. A lot of you know his Instagram account. It's a hip hop. What'd you call it? Hip hop history.
Yeah, Up North Trips is
account.
amazing. Photos, flyers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
moments.
He smashes that. And yeah, he and I actually as long ago as 2013, we didn't really know each other, but we're like, yeah, we should collaborate on a project. And then I was digitizing all my flyers, thinking that I'd actually get some of them printed up and put on my wall. And he had the idea, is like, yeah, we should do a flyer book. And I'm like, yo, there's been flyer books of like rave culture in the UK, of punk flyers, of old school hip hop flyers. How come there hasn't been a book on flyers from our era, like late 80s, 90s? I mean, my era. You guys are.
I'm 41, bro. I wasn't old enough to hit the club, but I started in this game. I got on the radio in '90, so I remember a lot of this shit.
Gotcha. So so we decided to do this, and it's not a hip hop book, although if it's a book about New York club culture, hip hop is certainly a big part of it. But it touches on a lot of scenes. I would say that the focus is really probably 88 to 94, and then it thins out a little bit in the late 90s. And that's because in terms of what I selected as printing technology got more advanced, I think the printers in the late 90s started to lose their sort of idiosyncratic personality and that sort of DIY aesthetic, which I really dug.
Right. Yo, pick it up. No Sleep. Go to page 207.
What's 207?
We were just talking about this the other day.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
So those of you kids out there that think y'all been on this Supreme
The birth
thing early.
and the 1 year.
Oh my God.
Up
Right,
top
this is the
birth.
first Supreme party flyer. Yes, the brand Supreme. And below it, from 1995, the 1 year anniversary of Supreme.
And I did, my man DJ Jules and I, we did the birth, it's not even the first birthday, it's the birth of Supreme party.
Supreme,
and then,
the Face magazine, if you remember that, Royal Flush and Supreme.
And then Enough did the 1 year anniversary.
Yes,
Yeah,
Hot
that's
97's own. And no, excuse me, the Flip Squad's own. DJ.
Yeah. That's so tight.
Yo, so those kids, because kids, I've been wearing Supreme a long time, so kids be like, yo, you trying to be young wearing Supreme.
It's an old brand.
Yo, B, you know how long Supreme's been around, dog? Yo, early Stussy party.
This is so awesome.
Early Stussy.
Fat Farm.
Fat Farm.
I know.
Yo, so get the book, No Sleep. Stretch, let me ask you a question, bro. Because it's so all over everywhere, and we were just talking about kind of what's going on socially with race. And as you being a white guy in hip-hop,
A friendly white guy.
the friendly white guy, right? Never be an outspoken white guy in hip-hop. It's dangerous. Rosenberg tries it, and he gets a lot of flack.
He just last week, right?
Yeah, last week got some heat, too. Yeah, he always gets some heat.
But he's getting support. I
Yeah,
think,
and he has a good heart.
for that one, right?
Well, he's been at it for 8 years, taking his beating out here, just being outspoken for hip hop. But that was one of the reasons we hired him, because what he represents as far as a hip hop head and somebody who studied the culture, not somebody who just grew up in the hood, somebody who literally, as a suburban kid outside the culture, was so enthralled by it, literally studied it and wanted to be a part of it. That's what I wanted him to represent at Hot 97, right? Because sometimes that's lost, right? Somebody who just cares about the essentials of it all, the fabric of it. Talk about what that experience was like for you. Was race ever an issue for you as a DJ and as somebody in hip hop in New York City?
I gotta say, it never has been.
That's amazing.
Ever. And maybe that's because I got in on the ground floor when the building was getting built.
And a lot of people forget that the origins of hip hop was very multicultural.
It was, although I gotta say that when I was going to hip hop jams, and I'm not talking about parties where they played hip hop, but I'm talking about where this is Milky Way, Just Ice and Cool G Rapper performing, and I'm literally the only white dude in the club. Maybe Duke of Denmark is DJing, but it was like that. But even when it was like that, when I was the only white guy in the club, who talks like that in the club? Only white guy in the club. It was never an issue. In fact, and this is kind of sad. Not sad, but it's something to think about. When a party would erupt in violence, which was common back then, I felt invisible.
Really?
There would be people just getting beaten up, and even guns pulled out, and I was like off limits. No one would, and of course I only have the perspective of being me. I don't know what other people are thinking, and I don't know if they're looking at me like, oh, he's a white guy, like maybe he's a cop or he works here or whatever. I don't know, but it just, or maybe because I was just cool and not trying to get involved.
Well, it's
in
interesting
any
you
static,
say that.
but
like we've had programmers here hot that I would say they would be like, "Yo, can I come to such and such?" I'd be like, "Yeah, of course." Well, I'm an old white guy. Nobody's even gonna look in your direction.
that's right.
And it's sad in some ways because you know that when something crazy breaks out in the street, it's always going to be race on black,
right.
or Spanish on Spanish, or girl on girl, or you know what I mean? That it just never, or black on Spanish or something like that.
Sure.
But it is very interesting how that white supremacy programming breaks into even when there's just literally a fight in a club.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it 1,000
Yeah.
times. Where everybody's fighting, but nobody wants to put hands on the white person. That's that white supremacy work.
Yeah.
But it's for a reason I wanted to ask you that was because I was raised in Northern California and hip hop was always everyone, right? And we live in a time right now where you see because of social media where people think because hip hop when it started was voicing the black experience, they forget that there were dancers of Puerto Rican descent, DJs of Puerto Rican descent, graffiti artists from all backgrounds, right? On the West Coast,
Sure.
some of the most amazing DJs are, Asian kids, Invisible Scratch Pickles, or, Mixed Master Mike, who's Spanish, or whatever, Filipino and Spanish, whatever. And you just see a lot of this race divide now. But hip-hop, for me, was always the culture that brought everybody from all walks of life together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was talking about how when I first started going to hip-hop jams, I may have been the only white guy, but that, over time, that changed incredibly. And I think that actually our radio show in New York City had a lot to do with that because a lot of, I was never that guy that was trying to be or sound like somebody else. I was just me, and I think a lot of people even, from maybe the most economically depressed areas that were, completely segregated, appreciated that. I mean, I'd go to Queensbridge to go kick it with Traj or whoever, and as soon as they, kids that were on the basketball court found out that I was, set foot, on the grounds, like 20 dudes would come around and be like, "Yo, Stretch," and it was,
it was love.
I loved that. It was great, and at the same time, there were a lot of white kids that were getting turned on to hip hop that found out about our show, and they looked at me as an example, like, "Oh, you could be yourself and be in hip hop. You don't have to try to be somebody.
You don't have to try to talk slang
Right,
and talk
right.
hard.
And you can be a part of the culture and be yourself."
And I think that idea has been lost sometimes too, because you meet people who are trying to, I meet white kids that's trying to use the N-word, and I'm like, yo, you ain't gotta chill. That's offensive. Like, chill out. You ain't gotta do all that. And I think some of that, and that's why I wanted to bring it up to you, because you've been around as somebody who is not black in hip hop and in the street and around the world representing this culture. And anyone and everyone knows that you are a part of the fabric of it, right? And that's one of the.
But I always had this idea in my head that I always felt like I'm a guest in someone else's house, and you got to act accordingly,
right?
Yeah,
I mean, and that's another part why you get respect too. You know what I mean? Because you are somebody who's super cool, humble, and aware of who you are and what you represent in the culture. So that's dope. No Sleep, get that book. It's on Amazon. How do you feel right now, Stretch, about our current or are about to be president?
Oh, I'm absolutely nauseated. I mean, I literally, I'm not exaggerating. I've had nightmares about this guy and what he could potentially do. Literally, I've had political nightmares. The problem with those nightmares is you wake up, and the nightmare is the reality.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Well, let me ask you this. You've DJ'd tons of parties at every level in New York City. I mean, super rich, high end.
From the basement to the penthouse.
Yeah, everything. Have you ever played a party where Donald Trump was there?
No.
Never.
I saw Trump once in person, and that was in Aspen, Colorado, skiing. And he was in line to get on the lift, and this is the 80s. And I loathed him back then.
Why? For people who don't live in New York, I mean, we know why in New York.
He just represents everything that I'm not down with. Just ostentatiousness, vulgarity, bad taste, no soul, just a self-centered megalomaniac, just jackass. And I wanted to spray, I wanted to just go full speed towards the line and just
spray him with some snow,
just wet him up.
Yeah.
I thought it's funny, you remember, you can convince yourself that things happen, and for a little while I actually thought that I did that to him, and I realized now if I had done that to Trump, something would have happened to me.
A problem.
But yeah, it's
But we're here now, bro. We're here now. We are here now. Donald Trump from right here.
Yes.
Is the city, we've hated this man in the city for a long time.
For as long as I've known about him.
He's the president of the United States. He gamed the whole system. Matter of fact, he gamed the whole system so much that poor white people think that he has their best interest in mind.
And they're going to get it worse, the worst. They are in for this is going to be the biggest case of buyer's remorse in the history of buying.
It's already started.
Yeah.
Because there are people who are like, yo, I just voted for him because he said he was going to help me get a job. Like,
Well, I'm hoping that the reaction to his presidency will coalesce into a really true, cohesive populist movement, and I think it can be done. I think that what Bernie Sanders inspired maybe was a little bit too late. I think if he had 6 more months, I think.
Do you think Bernie's age played into it at all?
I don't think so. I mean, I was. I mean,
Trump's damn near his age, but the way they carry themselves, Bernie carries himself a little bit more.
I feel like Bernie is he's a really just vigorous kind of. I mean, he's old, but like that dude is out. He's killing
workhorse.
It. Like he's
still going
he's
now.
He's still out there. He never stops. He doesn't stop.
He chilled for a second to when they took it from him and gave it to Hillary.
Yeah, I think out of respect,
he chilled for a second, and now he's back on it.
But if it's not necessarily going to be a movement, headed by Bernie. I think he'll certainly be involved. But I mean, I'm curious to see. First, the DNC's got to figure out what they're doing. I mean, they're kind of a mess, and they share in the blame for the soup that we're in right now. For sure. I mean, how they did Bernie like that was.
I guess I'm a registered independent, so I'm not really. I'm kind of waiting. I will say this. I'm for social services, and I'm for helping people get a leg up. I'm 100% for working families and education, and I don't care who the president is, right? If you're for those things, I'm party schmarty. Like, the only reason I've never voted Republican is because they have too many religious and moral shit wove into the whole platform. It's always you're getting into abortion and religious
social
values,
family values.
Get out of here with all that. What are we talking about with this education and getting young people ready to get into these jobs so we could be competitive? Because we're not competitive. That's what people are missing. Like, all of y'all think that you're going to school right now for a vocational job, or you just want a job, or the 1,000 jobs that Trump saved in Indiana. They are lying to you, bro. They are lying to you so crazy. We are not ready as a country for. That's why India kicks our ass, and that's why China kicks our ass, is because they're educating their youth for the jobs of tomorrow, not today. We just got a president in there who was like, yo, I'm going to make your Christmas this year great. And, what about 5 years from now, bro? What about 5 years? And sometimes in America, we are so short-sighted that is our biggest downfall. We have just set ourselves back so many years. The fact that we're arguing over a pipeline when they have fucking battery-powered cars, like, what are we talking about? Why are we talking about this when you can charge up a battery and move?
Well, because the pipeline is not for anything but for a private company to make money.
But that's all it is. So why are we even having this conversation?
Yeah, how is eminent domain used for a private company to make money off selling oil to foreign countries? How's that helping us?
But the reason is because those states, North Dakota, South Dakota, whichever one it is, or both of them, they want those tax dollars from that major company, and they want those short-term
and the
jobs.
temporary jobs.
And the temporary jobs.
Yeah.
So
there's no big picture thinking here.
It's a tough time,
but I really hope that as bad as it gets, again, that like-minded people that care mobilize and get together, because that's the only option.
And there's so many things, man. I was going to go on my tirade about southern states and how southern states vote against their own pocket.
Always.
And southern states, Mississippi, Alabama, get the most government funding of any states in the country, B.
That's right.
Our federal government, our federal tax dollars go more to those states than they do a New York State or a California.
That's right. We pay for them.
And then they vote against social services, but they're getting the most social services.
They also have the highest divorce rate, and they constantly talk about family values.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
That's great.
That's crazy.
So here's the silver lining for everyone. This book, 1988. If you're old enough to be partying in 1988, you know what a shithole New York City was because of a lot of politics and a lot of shit and people taking advantage of the system. When it's a shithole and when we're really frustrated, some great fucking music comes out, though. So if you're looking for a silver lining, there's probably going to be some amazing hip-hop and some great music and some amazing parties. Because when people are pissed off, what do? They go drink and throw some amazing parties and they want to dance and they get together.
I mean, listen,
so that's the silver lining.
As soon as Trump got elected, we got that amazing Tribe album that basically changed the energy.
Hello.
It changed the energy for everyone.
Hello. Love that album.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me feel young.
Are you a J. Cole fan?
Yeah, I am.
You like have you listened to these new records?
Yes,
how do you feel?
I'm feeling them.
What about Kendrick Lamar?
Yeah, I like Kendrick. But we were talking before we started filming. Look, this new Tribe album compels me to listen to it. So I like a lot of the other artists, but I wouldn't really necessarily put them on in the crib. This new Tribe album is getting bumped at home regularly.
Look at him.
It's a great album.
He's in his moment. Stretch Armstrong. Once again, the Stretch and Bobbito documentary, Radio That Changed Lives, is on Netflix now. Go look at that.
Yes,
and pick this up on Amazon. It's called No Sleep. It's a great gift for that, that auntie that was partying in 1988, 90, and all that.
It's actually great for everybody.
Yeah, get it for your homie that used to go clubbing with.
Or even for those graphic artists in your life that are looking for new ideas. This book right here, you can steal some ideas, man.
That's right. Even though the book is out, I'm about to launch a Kickstarter campaign with a lot of really cool things that, from apparel, jackets, shirts, and whatnot. We're going to run that so that we can fund a book tour so we can come to people's cities, shake hands, sign books, and maybe even throw parties.